Looks like Luffy and the gang are finally about to take action. Hello everyone, how's it going? This week we have another great chapter of One Piece. But before we begin, make sure to like the video and subscribe to my channel. Now without further ado, let's get right into it. First, of course, we have the cover page for this week. Well, we see that Yamato has apparently beaten up Uroshima's older brother, Sukune. And that's about it, so let's move on to the main chapter. We start off this week's chapter with Kashi trying to stop Dory and Brogy from rampaging, but they won't listen to him. And then we have another giant called Thorman trying to explain to Kashi about what happened to the captains. But then he also gets trapped between two demons and is flipped over into a demon himself. So this pretty much confirms that Imu's ability works similar to the game Reversi, or Othello as it's also called, where if a piece is trapped between two pieces of a different color, then it's flipped over into that color. But I guess this also means that if the demons get surrounded by non-demons, then they will also flip back over to what they used to be. But this brings up the question, because in the last chapter, Imu talked about the lifespan of the person being turned into a demon also being reduced. Does that mean that when they are turned back, the lifespan is restored? Or does it mean that the lifespan is gone permanently? I guess we will just have to wait and see. We then see the non-demon giants running away from the ones that have been turned into demons. We see that Ripley is also running away, and she overhears the other giants talking about Scopper being taken out, and so she decides to go and save Colin herself. Meanwhile, we see that the children have been hearing about the demons, and that has caused them to have nightmares about the demons. As a result, the dream monsters now have more reinforcements. We then see Killingham, who is now in his hybrid form, using a horn to resurrect all the fallen dream monsters by convincing them that they are not actually dead. We then cut over to Nami and the gang, who are shocked by this whole situation, and we see that Usopp is taken aback by the actions of Dory and Brogy, and he tells them to get their act together. We then cut over to the parents of the children, who are now realizing why Saul failed to save the children, and they build up the resolve to save the children once again. We also see Ben's mother, who we also saw as a dream monster from earlier. We then get a scene of Sommers and Killingham trying to confirm with Imu about how far they should go. Imu says that they should keep going until the heart of Elbaf is broken, further adding that Elbaf would have been subjugated many years ago if it had not been for Harold's miserable failure. This is now the third time this failure has been brought up. I am really curious just what happened with Harold. We then have a flashback to a few minutes earlier in the underworld, where we see a scene of Mr. Ya falling to the underworld and Chopper falling behind him. Here we see Chopper somehow running in the air in order to get below Mr. Ya and then using guard point to break both of their falls. We then cut over to Luffy and the gang, and here we see Hiruzen and Loki continuing to argue about what happened with their father. But then the argument is cut short by Luffy mentioning that Chopper just fell down, and the others mention that they also heard someone fall with the observation haki, but they don't seem to know who actually fell. And here we get an interesting scene of Luffy being confused about how he knew that Chopper was the one who fell. So I guess his observation haki is beginning to evolve once again. They then go and search for Chopper and Mr. Ya. Meanwhile, we get a scene of Loki being contacted by his mysterious friend Mosa, or Shaggy depending on the translation. Shaggy/Mosa tells him that this will be the last time that he will be contacting him, and he also thanks him for everything. Loki asks him if he is in danger, and he seems really worried for his friend, but Mosa cuts off the call before giving him a proper answer. After which, Luffy and the gang bring over Mr. Ya and Chopper. Here, Luffy, Zoro and Sanji finally find out that Mr. Ya is in fact Scoppergaban, who was one of the wings of the Pirate King. And here we have a really funny scene where someone says that Mr. Ya was most likely the third strongest person in the Pirate King's crew, and that causes him to finally wake up and correct them that he was in fact the second strongest. Chopper explains the situation to Luffy and the gang, and right at that moment, Imu's haki from the previous chapter reaches the underworld, and based on the strength of the haki, Luffy and the gang realize the severity of the situation, and they are now going to return to the Sun World and jump into action. And that's how the chapter ends. All in all, this was a great chapter of One Piece, where we got a confirmation about just how Imu's abilities work, although this still brings up a question about the lifespan situation. And we also saw Killingham in his hybrid form, as well as a glimpse into just how effective his ability really is, with it constantly getting stronger with more time that passes by. We also found out that Imu's goal is to break the heart of Elbaf, and for a third time we are getting a mention of the mistake that Harold apparently made. And finally, we got an update about what Luffy and the gang are up to, as well as what seems like the final communication between Loki and his friend Shaggy, and also Luffy and the gang finding out that Mr. Ya is in fact Scoppergaban. And then at the end we saw that Luffy and the gang are finally going to be jumping into action, although I am curious about what they can actually do in this current situation, especially since Loki isn't really in a condition to be fighting. And the same can be said for Scopper. And with that, I am really looking forward to what will happen in the next chapter, so I guess I will see you whenever that comes out. Once again, make sure to like the video and subscribe. Bye bye.